I'm Reis with Exterior Elegance. We're an independently licensed dealer and installer for Renaissance patio products. Today's video, we're going to be talking you through the steps to build a Renaissance Classico in gable framing. If this is your first installation, I recommend checking out our Moderno video that talks you through some of the more basic steps of a Renaissance installation. Today's video is going to be specific to the framing required to build a gable. So on this project, being that it's freestanding and it's a pretty large structure, engineering is requiring us to do embedded post footings. We're going to talk you through the steps of how we got these set. Engineering is requiring 18-inch sonotube isolated footings. We're going to be embedding our internal post sleeve 18 inches down and 18 inches above grade for our post to slide over. The first thing we did was coat our internal sleeves with foundation coating on the bottom 18 inches that's going to be into the concrete. Although aluminum is fairly corrosion resistant, it's not completely indestructible. Between the chemicals of the concrete as well as the salinity, being that we're right here on the water, over time the aluminum can deteriorate. Our engineering documents are requiring this step. If for some reason yours don't, I would still recommend taking this extra step to ensure that this aluminum is going to last a lifetime. Prior to the foundation coating, we drilled a hole through two sides of the sleeve 9 inches from the bottom, and we're going to insert a piece of 16-inch rebar through the center, and that's going to hold it inside of the concrete. The concrete work is going to be done by a third party, so we're not going to be on site whenever they're pouring, so we need to make sure that we're securing our post sleeves right where we want them. That way when we return to install our structure, they're going to be level, square, and in the place that we put them. Once our sleeves were in the footings, we pulled our measurement for the footprint of our structure. We were 24 on center from end to end and 11 on center across, with a center post at 12 on center. We got all of our sleeves in the locations that we needed them, and then we leveled our sleeves and secured them with stakes and screws to hold them in place when the concrete gets poured. Although we won't be on site whenever the concrete gets poured, our project manager will be, to make sure that these stay level. If these end up crooked after the concrete cures, your post is going to be crooked and there's no way to get it back to level. In other words, you're As you're about to see shortly, these posts did not remain level during the concrete pouring process. We had to do some pretty extreme techniques to get these things back to level. We were only able to do this because we're in sandy soil with isolated footings. I would highly recommend being on site when the concrete gets poured to ensure these do stay level. To pull our level for these posts, we're going to use our laser level. I start off on a post in the center of the structure, and I measure the distance from my line to the top of our footer. We had 22 1/4 inches. Then I spin my line around to each one of my post inserts, and I take that measurement. We had measurements varying between 16 3/4 inches and 22 1/4 inches. We're going to add or subtract those distances off of our posts. Once we calculated all of our elevations of our footers, we went over here to this corner post closest to the house. We measured this one out and decided that 10 feet would give us ample clearance. From there, we're adding or subtracting the differences that we got amongst all of our footings to ensure that our roof will be completely level and will be above the house roof. A couple things to mention whenever you're installing these beam clips. One, anytime you're using a template to hold it in place, make sure you're using a heavy duty beam, whether it be your wide or your standard beam. If you use the thin beam, there's a chance that you could get your clip offset. When you go to slide your wide beam over top of it, it's not going to clear the ridges on the edge of the post. On this project, we're using 8 of our number 14 self-drilling screws to hold the clips in place. This is going to vary from project to project. To make sure you're checking your engineering documents, it may require less, more, or even through bolts depending on the size. Also, being that this is a gabled structure, you're going to see something that's not very common on the other Renaissance structures. We're mounting this beam clip lower than our other ones. We're going to have a cross beam as well as a beam going from our post up to our ridge beam in the center. So that will end up getting mounted here. I'm waiting to see where this is going to fall so I can tuck my beam all the way up to our roof line. We're going to end up having a total of 5 clips per post on this project, which is a lot. We got our post in place. We're not going to secure them just yet. We still have a little bit of play over the top of our inserts, and we're going to need that in order to get our beams into place. Once the beams are in place, then we'll come back and fasten our posts to the inserts. As you can see, our posts were inset slightly. We pulled our measurement from the bottom of our 2 posts, so ideally if our beam is the same length as the bottom measurement, both of our posts will be level. That wasn't the case. We got a little bit of play in these and a little bit of creativity in a hoist. I'd rather not notch the beam because that kind of weakens it. I like the top of that beam to be able to rest on the top of the clip. One more, there you go. Now start coming off of it. So on this one, both of our posts were out slightly. We did not have to pull them apart to get the beam in. Once the beam was in, we had to pull them together. We hoisted them together and we noticed that we were leaning slightly this direction. So we attached the hoist up at the top on this post, down here at the bottom, and it pulled everything back straight. And then we slid it back up, pulling them together, and we'll go ahead and fasten it now. We had the same situation with this set. They're both leaning this way just a touch, so by attaching up top on this side, attaching down low over here, it'll shift everything to our left as we tighten them up. We're a little bit past it. I think if we go ahead and secure them right here, it'll fall back into place. We're building this gable without center posts, therefore our cross beams are going to be used to support our ridge beam. A couple different options on how to do this. On this one, we used our small 4x4 post with internal clips mounted on the top of our cross beam and the bottom of our ridge beam. If you wanted to use the same size framing throughout and not go down to the smaller size, you would notch out a section of your post, slip it over the top of your beam on the cross beam, and then slip the ridge beam into your gap up top. Realize that your notches are going to be north to south on the bottom and east to west on the top. Typically, we are installing our internal clips even with the top of our posts, but if you notice, our post ends here, yet our ridge beam is mounted higher. Had we installed this clip even with the top of the post, it would have created a large gap between the top of the ridge beam and the bottom of our panel. To compensate for this, we ran a string line from the outside edge of our post over the top of our ridge beam and placed our clip accordingly. There's a couple other options on how to do this. We'll talk you through that in a minute. To get this Sunburst installed, we have to leave everything loose. Our ridge beam, our side beams, everything is still movable. We picked one side and kind of chose a location that we felt the Sunburst looked good. Using an angle finder, we calculated our angle here. From there, I used my first piece as a template to cut my other three. You dry fit it in here. As I'm sure you're aware by now, the gable requires a lot of angled cuts that need to be measured carefully. If you cut a beam too short or a truss too short and have to reorder that, you're going to be costing yourself extra money and delaying your project several weeks potentially. Take extra time, and I recommend using an angle finder. There's nicer models than this, but this one works for us. Calculate your angle, set your miter saw, and make your cut. Measure it 3 times if you got to, don't mess it up. And mark wherever your truss clip needs to go. You're going to have to offset it a little bit, being that you got a pretty extreme angle on this truss. Once you have everything into place, you're going to lift up on the beam and pull everything apart, get it into place, and kind of work it down into its position. After that, I'm wrapping a hoist around the top of my ridge beam to the bottom of my cross beam and tightening everything down. As you can see on this one, we got our angle perfect. As you can see right here, you can't see it from the ground. Now that we have all of our upper framework in place, we'll go ahead and secure our posts to the post inserts. Here we have our adjustable ridge beam. It's a adjustable receiving channel that's going to ride on our center beam. To install this, you're just going to slip the grooves in there,
You'll have connection details on this in your engineering plans, and those slide together, and then we'll adjust it for our pitch. It's going to come in 24-foot sticks. We need 26 feet, so we've got a full 24 up there, and then we're going to splice this on into either end. So we got our panel marked, and we're putting masking tape on this side. This is the side of the panel we're going to keep. This side's going to get scrapped, so we're going to keep the bulk of our saw over here and tape that line where our saw runs. You do not want to scratch this wood grain. There's real no touch-up paint for it, so take care of this stuff. Since the time of shooting the video, we've chosen to invest in a 10-inch circular saw. This is a much better option for cutting panels, especially our wood grain or bronze bottom panels, as you don't want to scratch it. You can cut 3-inch panels in a single pass with a magnesium sled. You're sliding right across the top of the panel with no scratches. Much better option if you're doing a lot of these cuts. So we have a 26-foot length of roof. We were given 2 14-foot gutters, well 4 total. So we're cutting them at 13 feet. That way our seam lines up right at the center of the structure. When you cut these gutters, the best way to do this is with the front side facing you on the saw. This lip will like to catch, so if you run your saw blade out, go through this part real slow. Once you clear that lip, you can slide your saw back.
Oh, interlock. Wide. So, okay, interlocks like that require it. Okay. It's heavy, it's a heavier gauge. The only tool I have is an AG4 gauge, which would be something. These are a pain in the ass.
On this project, we had a pretty extreme roof pitch. We're at around a 4 and 12, which is around the maximum of what you can build a Renaissance structure to. This would have caused us to have a gap at the top of our trusses, just like on our end beams, had we installed our trusses flush with the top of our side beams. What we did was we installed some 1x2 angle, color matched to our framing along the top of our beam, and installed our truss clips on the top and mounted our trusses flush with the top of our panels. On a Moderno, this wouldn't be necessary, as long as your customer can live with the gap. Had this been a Moderno rather than a Classico, and we were not concerned about the gap between the top of the beam and the bottom of the panels, we would have cut this post differently. We would have miter cut our post to match the angle of our roof. We would have installed our end beam clip flush with the top of our miter cut, and our side beam clip flush with the downward side of the top of our post. You would still have your gap above the top of your beam, however your post would sit flush with the bottom of the roof. The Renaissance extruded gutters are not going to be able to meet at the top of our ridge on a gabled system. So you have the option of either installing drip edge fascia like we did on this one, or using receiving channel to cap the ends of your panels. Typically on a Classico, you can get away with only notching one end of your truss, slipping the unnotched end over top of your clip on the high side of your structure, and sliding your truss end in over your internal clip on the low side. Due to the short projection of these trusses, they fell slightly under 6 foot. We had to notch both ends of them and then slip them in simultaneously. What we've built up until this point would work for a Moderno, a Contempo, or a Classico. The only difference is our trusses. Had we left all the trusses off, it would be a Moderno. Had we installed only our truss ends, it'd be a Contempo. And with our full truss installed, it becomes a Classico. The only thing you need to really pay attention to on the Classico is where your roof panel seams are going to fall so that your trusses will hide your panel seams. Lay that out before you start installing your panels. Another option we've included on this one is our Permatile roofing. Permatile is a galvanized roofing material that can be laid over top of your Elite panels to give your structure a much classier look. This can be ordered with your Renaissance kit. Reach out to the Renaissance team for help in ordering this. Although Permatile can be used as a roofing material, when you're overlaying it over top of Elite panels, it is essentially a decoration only. We did have this on our permit, and the building department did make us take many unnecessary steps in sealing a roofing decoration. Consider leaving decorations off of your building permit and waiting until after final inspection before you decorate. With our structure complete, as always, we want to take quality control measures into our own hands. We're going to double check everything we've done up to this point to ensure that we're delivering our customer an absolutely perfect product. We don't want our customer to bring any items to our attention. We want to correct them before they have the chance to see them. I understand a gable can seem very intimidating to take on, especially the first one. This was our first one, and we did learn a lot, and we're sharing this with you to help you get yours right on the first try. Make sure you're reaching out to the Renaissance team for guidance. They can talk you through all the different options on frame sizing, connection methods, and all the options that we've discussed in this video, and custom tune it to fit your project best.